Hello people, this is Edwin Learnard. I would like to talk about Gemini Rising in this YouTube video segment. First off, I'm going to talk about Gemini Rising's appearance. As we know that the rising sign or ascendant dominates the appearance and the first impression you get of people. Gemini Risings in build tend to be fairly, on a general rule, slender. Could even be very lanky, usually long arms and legs, but yet strong and wiry build. Broad shoulders. Gemini Rising people tend to have long, face tends to be long. Also, the hair inclines to be darker rather than lighter, and Geminis appear, be very animated, usually a very lively, I guess we could say, vivacious expression. Tend to have a long nose, sometimes pointed and sometimes very prominent at the tip as well. I've noticed with Gemini Rising people, especially, the eyes could be darting as their thoughts, somehow it's represented their thoughts, and minds wandering and going basically from one subject to another. We could be pondering, on one subject, and they're already, onto, I guess you could say, another plane or tack or whatever you would want to call it. Geminis, as far as personality, Gemini Rising, as I've stated, they can be very vivacious, very lively. They're quick-witted. Also, Gemini Rising, even though they might not be the most robust or strong people, even say in a fight or something similar, they get on their feet pretty quickly, even if they do go down. In certain experiences I've even had with Gemini Rising natives, I guess you could say. Also, Gemini Rising people are very capable of learning a lot and assimilating a lot in a short period of time. However, in some individuals, perhaps the intellect can be superficial as opposed to profound. This is mainly due to the fact that Gemini Rising, as far as their minds and mentality goes, it just like they become very bored and restless, very easily, and a lot of times will not conquer the full subject due to the fact that their minds are wandering and they want to get off, I guess you could say, onto another subject. And Gemini Rising people also are very amicable, very friendly, and they're easy people to know. Gemini Rising people, they tend, as the Gemini thing goes, I've heard that they are constantly searching for that elusive love, and they could search endlessly for that, and sometimes they might not really understand why this is, but when Gemini Rising truly falls in love, it is basically forever. I like to state, as far as Gemini Rising, any famous people with Gemini Rising go, I believe Neil Armstrong, former renowned astronaut, he had Gemini Rising. Wilt Chamberlain, although there was some controversy on his birth time, some astrological charts and sources have him at Taurus Rising, but based on his build and just certain, as far as the attributes connected with Gemini, I would say that he is more Gemini as opposed to having a Taurus Rising. Another person with a Gemini Rising, I believe, is Richard Rogers. And if anybody follows pro football, I'm sure you've heard of the coach Jeff Fisher, and he has Gemini Rising as well. And Gemini, Rising people obviously can make very good coaches because they have the ability to outmaneuver and outsmart, I guess you could say, the opponent. And Jeff Fisher is a great strategizer and schemer, as we well know, and seems like even though the Rams are 1-2 right now, he's got them playing a little bit better, and they're very competitive. Anyway, that is it for Gemini Rising. In my next YouTube segment, I will be talking about Cancer Rising.